It shakes up your self-cherishing. It makes you go, what? What? Are you kidding? Really? You know? Such as, oh, I'll try to be a nicer person. No, I'm going to actually make every single other person, every single other being first before myself. And it takes that kind of shake-up of the normal way that we think in order to get us to shift it, right? In order to get us to shift it. So very radical. And as we go through the course, you'll see it gets more and more, like the bar gets higher and higher. Certainly in the 8 verses that we'll finish up today, the bar gets higher. As each verse gets on, it's more like, wow, really? Do I have to go that far? Yeah, you do. You have to be that radical with yourself in order to get yourself to shift. So our biggest demon, the thing we have to deal with the most, is that, first thought about ourselves and, our lack of altruism. And, compassion is just what creates happiness. It just is. And that's just, them's the rules. And, I didn't make it up. Buddhism didn't make it up. You find it actually throughout every single religion. Every single spiritual path teaches the same thing. And, the wise work those rules. They don't fight them or disagree with them or try and figure out a way around them. They work with them. And in a way, it's basic karma teachings, right? So here are sort of 3 ways of applying karma teachings to create the kind of happiness that we all really want. If self-cherishing is the problem, at least you should be a smart self-cherisher, right? At least you should have good, smart, enlightened self-interest, which is to do the best thing for yourself, which is what? Take care of others, right? At least it's wise self-interest, right? So the 3, I guess you call them 3 rules are: if you want something, make sure someone else has it first. If you want something, make sure someone else gets it first. If you don't want something in your life, make sure you never do it to someone else. So the golden rule and the I've heard it called the silver rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and don't do unto others as you would not want them to do unto you. Right? I mean, that the second half of that, Jesus said both, right? Swami Jesus said both. But the one that tends to get quoted the most is the golden rule, right? But they're actually both sides of it, right? That's the first and second of these. And then if you want to keep something, what do you think? What do you think you do if you want to keep something? Give it away, or at least share it. At least share it. Right? So somebody might say, well, wait a second. I'm a card-carrying Buddhist, and I have my lay vows, and one of my vows says do not commit adultery, so how can I give away my partner? That would be making him commit adultery. Right? I want to keep this good relationship. How do I give it away? Well, what about just allowing that person to pursue their own things that they love? Right? How about sharing their time, their love with others? You're mine, right? Sort of, I love you, you're mine. Sort of, I love you, let's share that love with everyone. Right? I would love to watch you share that love with other people. Right? Give it away. So this is basic karma. This is how we create our world, by how we relate to others. And it's easy to say, kind of hard to do, actually. At least I found. Maybe you guys don't have a hard time, but I have a hard time doing this. So Lojong is here to train us, to develop ourselves in a way that we can work in our own best interests. Stop being selfish. Stop thinking about ourselves in the wrong way. So we started the 8 verses last week. And as I said to you, they're His Holiness the Dalai Lama's favorite. He says this is his main teaching that he he relies on for his practice. So I'm just going to read it again. You can close your eyes if you want and just listen. May I think of every living being as more precious than a wish-giving gem for reaching the ultimate goal, and so always hold them dear. When I'm with another, wherever we are, may I see myself as the lowest, may I hold others as highest from the bottom of my heart. As I go through the day, may I watch my mind to see if a negative thought has come. If it does, may I stop it right there with force, since it hurts myself and others. At times I will meet bad people, tormented by strong bad deeds and pain. They are hard to find, like a mine of gold, and so may I hold them dear. Some jealous person might do me wrong, insult me, or something of the like. May I learn to take the loss myself and offer them all the gain. There may be times when I turn to someone with every hope they'll help me, and instead they do me a great wrong. May I see them as my holy guide. In brief, may I give all help and joy to my mothers directly or some other way. May I take all the hurt and pain of my mothers in secret upon myself. May none of this ever be made impure by the 8 ideas of things. May I see all things are illusion and free myself from the chains of attachment. So just to review the ones that we covered, because there's a couple of people who are new. If you're going to do the homeworks and the quizzes, you should listen to the audio from the first, and you can ask Fred to send that to you. And if you are planning on doing the homeworks, then let us know and we'll assign you a marker. Okay. So the first one, may I think of every living being as more precious than a wish-giving gem for reaching the ultimate goal, and so hold them dear. So every living being, right? The ones I like, the ones I don't like, everyone. May I think of all of them as precious as a wish-giving gem. And remember we said there were a number of ways of looking at, of interpreting this particular verse. And one of them is simply that they're more precious than a wish-giving gem, because if you did have, like a wish-giving gem is like an Aladdin's lamp, right? You rub it and you get anything you want. And the chances are, you know, we're going to be rubbing it and getting things that we think are going to make us happy. Oh, I want a car. Boom, there's a car. Oh, I want a vacation in Hawaii. There's a vacation in Hawaii, or, you know, whatever, right? And we would do that. We would probably wish for a whole bunch of things that, you know, might be nice for a moment until like the first scratch on the car, until like day 4 when you're bored in Hawaii. You know, we can't think of, I'm tired of lying around on the beach, and so forth, right? So people are more precious because they're going to give us more than we could ever dream of. We can't really imagine what enlightenment would be like. We can't really imagine what reaching the ultimate goals would be like, so we don't even know what to wish for. So our actions, our positive actions to others, we don't even have to think about where they're taking us. We just know that they're taking us in the right direction, and that where we are going is more than we could ever imagine. And in that sense, they're greater than a wish-giving jewel. And I think this is, you know, something that we can really get as Westerners living in this incredibly abundant world that we live here in Canada. You know, the Great White North, with all the peace and prosperity and opportunities, and, you know, we live in a kind world. And if you don't know that, you should travel a little and get that picture. It's really an exceptional ripening that you have here. Your karma, your positive actions in the past have created this world that you live in, and it's incredible. Yet for all the wonders that we experience, all the positiveness that we experience here, we're still not happy. These prosperous countries have unbelievable levels of anxiety and depression. What is that? Right? I think that's finding out that all the things you could ever want still don't do it. They just still don't do it. You know, I spend a lot of my consumer good that I always like to spend my money on was travel, right? So I travel around the world. I end up in these incredibly beautiful places, and it's like still not that satisfied. I get to the top of Kilimanjaro, having spent 8 days climbing this mountain, and I'm on the top of Africa, and blah, 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 and it's like, yeah, need to go pee. Where can I do that? There's a lot of people up here. It's just everything's anticlimactic. Everything has a hollowness to it. And I think that that's the great lesson of our culture. The great lesson of our abundance is that we realize these outer things aren't going to bring us the happiness that we seek. That there's a deeper happiness that is the happiness we actually want. But because we aren't starving and thinking, oh, if I just had enough to eat, right? We're not at that level. We've got enough to eat, and we can see, still not happy, right? So this is the lesson, I think, and an important lesson, because it could provoke you to look elsewhere for your answers. It's not in the outer world. You've got everything. If you were a Buddhist, 500 years ago in a past life, praying for Pure Land, you got it. This is it, right? This road may not be paved in gold, but it's pretty darn close, right? And guess what? Still want more. Still want something else, right? So it's good. It's good. It's good to see that. It's good to get depressed. People who are depressed are right, right? Life is not doing it for me. So, look for something else. Look inside. Change your life in terms of how you view what it is that you're doing. Realize that the only thing that does bring our happiness is our actions vis-a-vis other people, other beings. That's only through developing our virtue that we can actually find real happiness. I mean, what happens when you do a meditation like we did at the beginning of class? Whatever mood you are in, it shifts to something sweeter. Right? I can be in the worst possible mood and do a meditation like that where I'm giving and I'm being kind to others and I'm thinking about others and my mood is shifted. It's better than a Prozac pill. It really is. It's better than any pill that you could ever buy. And I'm not trying to say go off, if somebody's on meds and they need it to stabilize their mind, and there's definitely I definitely am supportive of somebody, working through their psychological issues until their mind is stable enough to be able to practice. I have no problem with that. But I have to say, fastest way off Prozac is to start thinking about other people and sharing with them and giving to them. And we've got to kind of challenge ourselves a little bit, stretch ourselves around that as well. Verse number 2, just to review here, the verse says, when I'm with another, wherever we are, may I see myself as the lowest, may I hold the other as highest from the bottom of my heart. So from the bottom of my heart, sincerely, right? And what do they mean? Do they mean some sort of weird Buddhist low self-esteem trip? I mean, what is that? It's definitely not about low self-esteem. In fact, it's a great generator of high self-esteem, in a sense. Not the self, that sort of fixed self, but the self that in terms of karmic ripening. Because the idea here is that to see everybody as the highest is to see them as enlightened beings. Sent from HQ on your case. They're here to help you get to enlightenment as well. Right? So to view everybody, every experience you have, as some teaching from your Lama, as some teaching from the Buddhas that'll help you get where you're trying to go. So can you verify that? Can you verify the people around you are just ordinary schmucks? No, unless you're a mind reader. Unless you can read their minds, you can't know. And you can't verify that they're angels either. You have no idea. You cannot know other people really. right? So then you have to think about what's the most useful way for me to interpret, for me to view this person. And the most spiritually useful thing to do is to view them as enlightened beings, as angels, sent here to help you. That's the most useful way to view what they say and what they do in relationship to you, that they're trying to teach you something. And you can see how that would raise your self-esteem, actually, right? Because, like, hey, it's pretty cool. Angels come especially for me. Help me. I'm a special person. I'm worthy of being helped, right? I'm worthy of beings who have reached the ultimate goals, having their attention to help me. And you guys can, this is not that big of a stretch for you. You are receiving the highest teachings that are available in the Buddhist lineage. You know, the kind of Buddhism that you learn through these kinds of courses was only for the very elite. Most Buddhists, most peasant Buddhism, just like peasant Christianity, which is the way most Christians learn Christianity, is just, please, 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 right? But you're actually learning the whys and the wherefores and the details and the background and the depth of it. Just the fact that you're experiencing that, right? Feel good about yourself. You created this. You created this craft. You created this knowledge, right? You created the beings who are trying to help you be happy, right? So, be glad they're there, respect them for that, and rejoice that you've done that. That's a pretty cool thing. I was also thinking about the whole idea of, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. Jesus washed his disciples' feet. And in our day and age, we just kind of go, well, that's interesting. It's a big deal. But when you think about back then, where people walked around barefoot and their feet got into... Has anybody here ever been to India? Yeah. Okay, so like there's poop running down the streets, okay? I was there with Lama Maroon and a whole bunch of people. Geshe-la was teaching there. We were going to teachings by the Dalai Lama during the day, then at night Geshe Michael would teach. It's like a totally awesome month. And when we first got there, like people were like a little uptight there, Shadi, in your closed-toed shoes, Everybody else is in sandals and flip-flops, and I said, okay, wait till it rains. Right? So it rains, and like all the cow poop that's all over the places and little patties now is running down the street, right? And you're there in your flip-flops. I had my closed-toed shoes on. So, but just imagine that was the way the world was everywhere, right? So some people are walking around in sandals. That's what people's feet were like. They were just filthy, So the idea that the highest being on the planet at that time is going to get down on his knees and wash his students' feet that are just filthy poo-poo covered feet, right? That act of humbleness. That's what makes him the King of Kings. That's how he gets to be the King. That's how he gets to be Jesus, right? It's his willingness to be the lowest. His willingness to be the lowest.
That's a question.
Sure.
My Catholic upbringing is having me ask the question.
Uh-huh.
Martyrdom. How is it not that martyrdom?
How is making yourself the lowest not martyrdom?
Yeah, I'm still sort of sitting through this part.
Right. Okay. Well, martyrdom is a whole other different thing, right?
I know what it all means.
Yeah. So I don't know if you're talking an official definition of what a martyr is in Catholicism, or are you talking about somebody who allows themselves to be
more than
physically beaten, or
not even that extreme?
Not in that. Well, that's what most martyrs were, like killed or tortured or what have you, right? That's how they get to be martyrs.
Okay,
so it's a good question. So so let me put it in terms of what we're talking about, which would be if I'm letting other people if I'm seeing other, and particularly with the next few, right? After this, where people are jealous and I go stuff, all that. It is not a compassionate act to let other people continue to hurt you. Why? Why? Why is it? Why do you think? Is it, Leonardo? Why is it not a compassionate act to let other people hurt you?
Well, number one, you're allowing him to happen to you, and it's also bad seeds for them.
There's no number one. It's just the fact that they're letting them plant bad seeds. It's bad karma for them to hurt you.
Right.
So you stop them, not because, oh, you're hurting me, stop hurting me. You're stopping them with, stop hurting me, you're hurting yourself. Right? So in that framework, martyrdom is not good. Right? At the same time, you say, okay, well, Jesus, cross, what's the story there? Right? What, how does that fit in with what we're talking about? And, in a way, and we're going to talk about Tonglen later on in the class, in a way you could say that what Jesus was having playing out a ripening of people being cruel to him. And he could have just taken that and said, wow, these people are cruel, these people are horrible, and so forth. Or he could say, in my suffering, let my suffering be meaningful. May I suffer so that other people may. Is it not like the ultimate Tonglen? Right? So it's a very different take on it. And you can do that in your own life. Right? I'm having a hard time going to sleep. Well, let me think of I'm sure in my neighborhood there's all sorts of people who are having problems with insomnia in this moment. May my moment of being suffering with an inability to go to sleep, let me take that on for everybody and let them sleep and let me be the one that's the insomniac. Because you're gonna be you're awake anyway, right? So why not take on other people's suffering? Try and protect them. Make meaning out of your suffering, right? Does that make sense? Okay, yeah. So we're going to kind of come back around to that question in this. You sort of skipped ahead a little bit there. Well, that's okay.
I was thinking
okay.
of my mother, actually. It was not before.
So the third verse in our, we're just reviewing, right? As I go through the day, may I watch my mind to see if a negative thought has come. If it does, may I stop it right there with force, since it hurts myself and others. And as I was saying earlier, right, somebody had shared that, it was hard to change their view of, and somebody was treating them, and I was saying that, reduction of intensity and frequency is what we're working with. I think it's a kind of an interesting statement here. May I stop it forcefully because it hurts me and others. So how does it hurt me? By creating negative seeds, right? By creating negative seeds which will ripen later as other people having, the same kind of negative reaction to myself. And we're talking about anything that harms others. Judgment, anger, jealousy, arrogance, all the thoughts that we have, all the actions and words that we have towards others that are harmful. May I stop them because they hurt me by planting seeds for a future negative experience that I'm going to have. And even in the moment, your day doesn't go better when you're angry, does it? Right? Like when anger feelings come up, doesn't your whole day sort of start to go downhill from there? Right in the moment. Like, never mind the seeds ripening whenever they're going to ripen, right? Like right then and there, our experience starts to deteriorate when we have these kind of negative thoughts in our mind. I find now, like the longer I practice, I actually feel anger as a physical pain. And I think it always was a physical pain, but I was somehow like not cognizant or numbed out about it somehow. But now when I get angry, I feel like somebody is stabbing me. Like it hurts physically in my heart, right? And that's like a good thing. It is, because it really cuts down on how angry I get. Right? It's like, oh, okay, I'm having that reaction. Even sometimes when I'm not mentally aware of anger, just the fact that I'm starting to feel a stabbing feeling in my heart means something's up, right? And I need to stop and just kind of like, okay, what's going on? Oh, I'm feeling angry, As we're racing through our day, right? Sometimes we're not very cognizant of what's going on emotionally. So I'm glad that now when I get angry, somebody stabs me in the heart. It's good. It's good. And then how is it hurting others? I mean, there's the obvious hurting others by yelling at them, which is obviously very bad, or doing negative actions towards them. But how are your negative thoughts hurting others?
You're projecting it onto them. You're forcing that negative energy on them.
Yeah. Here's the Shadi cure for negative thoughts about other people. And some of you guys may have heard this from me before. I really highly recommend it. Because when you have a negative thought about somebody, you have a judgment about somebody, you are harming them with your thoughts energetically. And so my cure for myself on this, that I have to every once in a while resurrect, because I'll fall into bad habits, particularly around judging others, is that I energetically go over to the person. I won't point at anybody here because I don't want to do that. I'll energetically go over to the person and I'll slap them. So it's like a little ghost Shadi, like this person here. Okay, I'm on the Sky Train and I see somebody eating a big, huge bag of potato chips and they're really overweight, and I think, disgusting, right? Judgment, right? Judgment, right? So I energetically, little ghost Shadi I stay in my chair. Little ghost Shadi gets up, walks over there, goes up to the person I'm judging, and I just go whack across their heads. Because that's what I'm doing anyway. That's what I'm doing energetically. That horrible thought I have towards that person is energetically hitting them. So I actually do it in my mind. Little ghost Shadi goes over there and I hit that person. And I'll tell you, you start doing that and you'll cut down on it. Because it's so horrible. I mean, everybody reacted, right? Like, oh my God, how could you do that, Shadi? It's so horrible. But actually doing it. I mean, I'm a very pragmatic person, right? So actually doing it cuts down on my doing it. Because I don't like that feeling that I've actually hit somebody.
So you just personified your thought and made it bigger so that you could shock yourself into doing it less?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I actually just did it there. Right? And it stops. I'll tell you, you do that for a couple of days and you'll stop judging people because you just don't want to do that. But the fact of the matter is you are doing that. That's the whole point. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
That when you have those kind of judgments, those kind of mean thoughts towards somebody, you're doing that on an energetic level. Right? So anyway, that's my Shadi my Shadi cure for cutting down, particularly on judgments and mean thoughts towards anybody else. So any response that we have towards anybody that's harmful, right? Any negative ideas and thoughts that we have towards somebody, it's just creating more negative energy. Let me give you a positive mental game to play, since everybody's still looking a bit shell-shocked. If you're in a difficult situation with somebody, let's say you're in a meeting or you're dealing with a customer, if you're at work or whatever, and the situation is going badly, get your little ghost self up, go over to the person and present them with a flower. Just in your mind. The person's standing there, they're yelling at you, things are going bad, they're not happy, just little ghost you goes over to that person and gives them a flower. Or put a pot of flowers between you and them. Energetically change the situation. And watch what happens. Watch what happens. So it's okay, faces are getting a little brighter again. This is good. They were like, maybe at the break I can leave. She's really scary. So any response other than a positive response is like honking your horn in gridlock. It's the phrase Lamru. Right? Does it make the situation better? No. Does being nice make the situation better? Sometimes it doesn't. Being mean sometimes works, and being mean sometimes doesn't work. So the point here is that you cannot change the situation in the moment. You cannot change. The karma has come up as an oak tree. You cannot push it back down. Please go back to being an acorn. Right? You can't do it. right? So what's the smartest thing for you to do? The smartest thing for you to do is do something positive so that in the future a positive result will come. It's just the smartest thing to do. It's not going to change anything. Because somebody yells at you and you yell back and they go, whoa, and they back off. Sometimes you yell at somebody yells at you, you yell back, and they get worse. So that didn't change anything. And sometimes somebody yells at you and you're really nice to them and then they stop. And sometimes people yell at you and you're really nice to them and they get worse. You cannot, the yelling will last for as long as the karma for the yelling exists. And it'll stop when that karma finishes ripening. Nothing you can do about it. Too late. It's a tree already. But you can plant a different seed for the future. So be as positive as you can. Be as positive as you are able in that moment. Verse 4, and then we'll be caught up, right? Verse 4 is, At times I will meet bad people, tormented by strong bad deeds and pain. They are hard to find, like a mine of gold, and so may I hold them dear. So yeah, so a couple of people worked with this one this week. So, hard to find. I don't know. I don't find bad people that hard to find. Actually, I do. The longer you practice, the less difficult people you run into, because you've eliminated them by planting good seeds, right? And so when they do come, it's great because they're showing you still have work to do. And then it says, tormented by bad deeds and pain. So it's saying be compassionate. The person is being negative because they have negative karma. They have so much pain and ignorance. This is why they're being cruel or angry or what have you. It's not nice to be an angry person. You know what it's like when you're angry. When you meet people who are angry people, like they're angry all the time, wow, like how horrible is that for them to live their lives like that? How horrible is that? Be compassionate. They're in pain. They're in pain. And yeah, it's not nice to be on the receiving end of that. But feel badly for them. They're having a tough time. My dad was a really angry guy. He was this really strange mixture of, he was a doctor and a great healer. So he was this really weird combination of a great healer and Mr. Angry, right? Really, really angry. Kind of violent. Not kind of, was violent with it as well. And, I spent a lot of my childhood, I spent a lot of money on analysis and psychology on this. And, a lot of conversations with my siblings and my mom about it. And, before I met the teachings, and I remember talking to my mom about, I think I'd been studying Buddhism for maybe 4 years at that point. And, just starting to have some little inklings of some understandings. And, the kind of the myth in the family was my dad was the bad guy, right? He was the bad guy. He was the guy with the bad temper and all of that. And my mom looked at me one day and she said, he had fibromyalgia. How do you say that word? Myalgia. He was in constant pain, day in and day out. The whole, my practice, right, has resulted in the whole myth of my father completely changing. Like I spent, 40 years of my life with him being the bad guy, and everybody agreed he was the bad guy, right? And when you behave badly in my family, you would be like, you're just like your father. Whenever you behave badly, right? Because he was the bad guy. And my practice, my compassion for others has changed the myth of my father in my family. Now there's a recognition that he was a person in pain, right? And that's why he was the way he was. And that's true for everybody who's like that. I mean, there's this whole new story now about his physical pain, which I can't prove. The man's dead, right? Can't ask him. Oh, was it because you were in physical pain? Is that why you were so mean? Can't ask him. But everybody's ideas about him has completely changed with the recognition that he was the way he was because he was in pain. Do you see where I'm going with this? Right? Compassion has flowered in everybody's hearts for him. Compassion for him, knowing where he was coming from a place of pain. Right? But this is true for everybody who's acting badly. Everybody. Every single person who's acting badly is either coming from ignorance and misunderstanding, right? Or they're coming from pain of some sort. So, let compassion flower in your heart for them. Let compassion flower in your heart for them. And also recognize that they're the only people who can teach you real compassion. They're the only people. Because, somebody who's just like nice to you, loving, right? They can't really pull that out of you. It's only when they challenge you. It's like you're only courageous if you have fear. If you have no fear, then there's no courage. Right? It's only going forward when you're scared that means you have courage. It's the same thing here. Compassion flowers when there's a need for it. When somebody is behaving badly, that's when your compassion comes forward, right? And meets them in that place. So we're caught up now. So let's do verse 5. So verse 5 says, some jealous person might do me wrong, insult me, or something of the like. May I learn to take the loss myself and offer them all the gain. So, okay, like it's really, the bar is getting higher here, right? Like first I was being nice to people who were bad, and now, because somebody's jealous of me, they actually do me wrong. They insult me. Something like that. And I'm supposed to take that loss and let them have all the gain. So it's a little bit about what Leonardo brought up. Is like, okay, wait a second, am I just letting people walk all over me and treat me badly and so forth? And we talked about the idea that it's no bodhisattva act to let people harm you. For their sake, you must restrain them. To prevent them from creating the bad karma, you must restrain them. But how? Right? How you do that. So the first step in how you do that is to understand where they're coming from. How did you have a person hurting you? Where does that person come from that's causing you pain in your life? Did they just randomly appear from out of nowhere? Where is that jealous person coming from? They're coming from your own jealousy in the past, right? Where is that insult coming from? Where is where is somebody doing you wrong coming from? Coming from your own actions. They are your own creation. That's the first step. Is to recognize that. Right? And then step 2 is to, and you can switch step 1 and step 2 in a way. I sometimes switch them. I sometimes go to having compassion for that person. Like, here's that person out here doing something mean to me, let me have compassion for them. Then I go to, the emptiness of it, right? Because sometimes when I'm having, feeling bad, emptiness is hard, kind of a bit of a stretch, right? I just feel bad. So this person is hurting me. First step for me is to try and have some compassion. Where are they coming from? And then the next step is to see the emptiness. I created this situation. Sometimes that takes a little strength for me anyway to get to that place. So that's step number, like I said, you can switch 1 or 2. And then, in order for there's the acts for myself. In order for me to not plant the seeds to see this again, I'm not going to react in a negative way to the person. And then in order to help them, I'm going to restrain them lovingly from doing this. From a place of compassion and love and trying to prevent them from creating more negative karma, I'm going to restrain them. And the metaphor that they often use here is if your mother was coming towards you, attacking you with a butcher knife, you wouldn't just like haul out a gun and go, boom, mom's shot, dead, right? You try and you'd be like, oh my God, I love this person, but somehow she's gone crazy and she's running around with a knife. Let me try and get that knife out of, you try and disarm her, right? And then you try and get her the help she needs to, stop behaving in that way, right? This is what one would do with somebody. This is assuming you love your mother, right? Tibetans use mother as an example because they're assuming everybody likes their mother and feels respect and honors her. A bit of a problem in the West, which they were shocked and surprised at. But that's why they always use mother as an example. So if mother doesn't work for you, use best friend. The understanding of where they're coming from, the wish to help them by restraining them, to help them, not help yourself, but to help them by restraining them, is kind of like the final step in this.
What was the step 2?
The step 1 and 2 can be switched, which is feeling compassion for them. Could be first or it could be second, and then seeing that you created them can be first or second. So that was basically, yeah. And then the next step after that was to think in terms of yourself. How can I prevent myself from seeing a person like this in the future? Act positively, right, would be step 3. Then step 4 would be to act positively. Try and restrain the person from creating this karma again in the future out of your love and your compassion for them. Like you would if your mother was attacking you, is the example there. So we kind of have to practice this. And, I think it's good to practice it in small ways, this idea of letting other people's go first or take the loss. So let other people sit on an airplane before you. I remember I was on a what's the airline in the States again? Southwest airline, where you get kind of it's like little pig pens. You get groups and people go in. If you're an A, you go in first. If you're a B, depending on when you checked in. It's great viewing on human behavior, watching people, scramble. And they've only sold enough seats for everybody will get on the airplane. Not everybody. And there's a part of you that kind of thinks, if I don't get to the front of the line, I won't get on the airplane. But they haven't sold more seats than they have people on the airplane, right? So you will get on, but everybody's got their sharp elbows out trying to get first. So you just let everybody else get on the airplane first. Right? It's a great opportunity. Right? Let them all get on first. I remember I got on an airplane. I used to fly Southwest because their prices are great. And I got on the airplane and I got a window seat. I don't even know how that happened. I think I checked in early enough that I was in the B group. And I walked all the way to the back, and they were still window seats, which I personally love. So I sat on my nice little window seat, and I was all comfy. And then just before the plane took off, this mom comes rushing on with her 2 kids. So there's 2 kids. There's 2 seats beside me. And mom and one of the kids sits beside me. And then there's no seat for the other kid. So mom turns to me and kind of looks at me with big puppy eyes, right? And the kid's up there, and she keeps crawling up on the back of her seat and looking back at her. Mom's back there, and I'm here. And I finally just looked at her and I said, would you like to sit here? Right? And yes, right? So I go and I switch seats with her, and I ended up sitting in, the seat nobody wants, which is between the 2 people, right? And I sit down, and the lady beside me goes, you're crazy. It was perfect. It was so perfect. She said, you're crazy. Giving up your seat just for some kid that you don't even know, right? And I was like, yeah, it could appear crazy. It could appear crazy, for sure, right? But it was, for me, it was trying to practice this. I liked my window seat. I would have liked to have stayed in my window seat. But it was okay, here's an opportunity to practice, right? And it was definitely a stretch because it was a 3-hour flight. But anyway, so do what you can. Take the opportunities you can. Let other people through the door first. You know, even when it's a stretch, right? Be kind to people even when they're rude to you. Respond with kindness. And just practice in any little ways that you can. And know that you're creating your own happiness. Know that you're creating your own happiness. There's, no matter how they react, right? No matter how they react. Like, no matter how, like you have, I used to call it getting over the dork factor. Like, don't worry that you look like a dork. Like, to this woman I ended up sitting beside, I was a complete idiot as far as she was concerned, right? I had a primo seat, and I gave it up. Like, what kind of stupidness is that, right? So you got to kind of, like, let yourself be a dork. You know, appear crazy or weird or, you know, like that. And just be okay with it. Because you know you're creating. I remember Lama Christie giving a teaching, and she was talking about giving and not worrying about if anybody said thank you or what happened. And she just made this gesture. She sometimes does these, like, really, I love how she gestures. And she was like this, just give, right? And her whole heart just opened like that. And it was just this idea that don't worry about it. You know, trust karma. Trust the laws of karma. It will come back to you in a positive way. So don't worry about it. Just give. Be open. Enjoy your giving. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about if you look like an idiot. Right? Understand and trust the laws of karma, that it will come back to you. Trust that the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. It's hard to do in the moment when somebody's being mean to you. It's hard to be kind and trust that that's the right thing to do. But it is. Okay.
So how can you do that? Like in the moment, like when if you're hurting or you're angry, because it happens sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how can you make that positive reaction?
You work your way up to it, right? Lama Root has this what is it? I think it's a 3-step. Is it 3 steps? Do you remember this, Fred? Like the first step, you know, somebody's angry, an irritating person does their irritating thing and they yell at you. So the first step is you just run away. You just run away. You just run, right? Can't take it, right? This person's being mean. If I stay one more second, I'm going to be mean right back. Excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom. And you just go to the bathroom. You run away, right? Can't always be running away. So second step is you stay and you just keep your mouth shut. You don't say anything. And in your mind, you're saying all sorts of mean things and freaking out and all of that kind of stuff, but you just don't say anything, right? You be the bump on the log. That's right, right? Bump on the log. And he does this whole thing where he goes, it's very cute. And then the third step is that you feel compassion for that person, right? And that you try and do something or say something that might help them. If it will actually help them. Because sometimes, you know, you're trying to be compassionate and it just pisses them off even more. So, wherever you are, and, you know, you're sometimes at different places with different people. Like some people, I have to run away. Some people I can be quiet with. Some people I can be compassionate with. And some people it's different on different days, depending on how strong I'm feeling that day, right? So just do your best. You do your best, yeah. So let's take a dance break for just 5 maybe times when I turn to someone with every hope they will help me, and instead they do me a great wrong. May I see them as my holy guide. So here's a person who, you know, you've counted on, who has totally betrayed you and, you know, and screwed you, really, right? So, you know, you kind of want to say, okay, Mr. Diamond Lion, this is the line, isn't it? Can I get mad now? Can I get them back now? You know, this is, I mean, anybody would agree when somebody who really trusted and counted on, that you looked to for help, and they betrayed you. I mean, everybody would agree that it's okay for you to get mad now, right? And Mr. Diamond Lion says, no. No, you know, not only can you not get mad, not only can you not think of some revenge you want to do, some payback you want to do, but you actually have to love them in the way that you love and see them in the way that you see your teacher, a person you're devoted to, right? So it's not just, okay, I'll let it go. It's like, thank you. You are my great teacher. Thank you. I love you. I'm devoted to you. Thank you for betraying me. Right? So the bar is really, really, really high here. And it has to be, as we said before, in order to stop the self-challenging. It has to be that radical, that extreme force on one side to counter the extreme force on the other. Because it's your self-cherishing that's saying, I think it's okay now for me to hurt this person back. Right? It's your self-cherishing that's that demon, the self-cherishing demon, that's saying it's gone too far now. So in order to counter that, you have to have another force equally strong, which is that you've got to go to devotion. Right? You've got to go to the opposite scale. You know what? Like a leverage, right? You have to be on the other end of the seesaw to get it to come down. If you were standing too close to it, right? Oh, okay. I'll be kind of like medium feeling about it. That's not going to tilt the scales. Right? You know what it's like on a seesaw. I used to always walk on them, right? My sister would be on one end, and then I'd walk on it until my end fell down, right? You almost have to get to the far end of it for it to fall down, right? To have that strength of counterbalance. And that's what these Lojong ideas are. I'm not just going to be okay with it. I'm not going to just let it go. I'm going to be devoted and love that person and view them as my greatest teacher. And this isn't the way we tend to think of. When we think of our spiritual teachers, we think of somebody, we've got to have our head in their lap, and they're stroking our hair. They're saying how sweet and wonderful we are, and what good work we're doing, and we're so great. This is how we like to think our teachers are going to be, right? But in fact, no. That's not the case. Actually, teachers are putting you on the toughest trials you'll ever be on. Right? They ask the hardest things from you. They push your buttons at every opportunity. At every opportunity. That's the whole point of having a teacher, right? Is to do that. Is to stretch you in that way. So, the person who's betraying you isn't somehow the opposite of your teacher, right? We only think of them that way because we think our teachers are people who are going to stroke us. But they're not. Teachers are always challenging you, always pushing you, And lots of people have funny stories. I have my funny stories about, my teacher. And I remember the first time he really, really pushed me hard. I was at Diamond Mountain, and I was studying the advanced classes with Lama Maru. And, I'd had my initiations and things like that with him. And Lama Christie had said to me, please join the advanced classes that her and Geshe Michael were teaching. Wow, how cool is that? I get to be part of that private club, right? So I was all ready to go off and join the advanced classes with Geshe Michael and Lama Christie. And thanks so much, Lama Maru, for catching me up. I'm on my way, And he said, no, you're not going to those classes. I said, well, I have permission from Lama Christie. He goes, I'm your Lama. I'm your Lama. You're not going to those classes. You're not allowed. By my decision. Right? And, he has this monk suit, right? The whole top of his monk suit was wet from my crying, snot, like the whole bit, right? Totally freaked out. I completely freaked out because he was, preventing me from the thing I wanted the most. How dare he, And nobody's the boss of me, and nobody tells me what to do. And how could he do that? If he cared about me, he'd let me go to the Diamond Mountain advanced classes because that's what I want, right? No way. And it wasn't just for a little while, a day. It was for terms he wouldn't let me go in there, right? And I cried and I cried and I just completely and utterly freaked out and was ready just to walk, And I can remember driving home. I lived in Phoenix at the time, and this horrible meeting I'd had with him was in Tucson, and I remember driving home, and on the way home, I was, in my mind, just like a riot of all the things that were horrible about Lama Maru, and and how mean he was to me. And about halfway home, I started to okay, started to calm down a little bit. And I thought, he let me cry and snot all over his monk robe, which was great kindness. And he let me yell at him. Like I yelled, right? Like how dare you, And he took it. He just took it. He just sat there and just took it. Right? And then I had to really think about, why would he do this? Why is he doing this to me? Right? He's doing it because he cares about me. He's doing it because he cares about me. Because he sees that my motivation for being in that class is completely wrong. Completely wrong. I want to be in that class because I want to belong to the private club. Right? And you know what it's like at Diamond Mountain, if you've been there, right? There's the people in the advanced classes and everybody else. Right? And I wanted to be part of that club. Right? Wrong motivation. Completely wrong motivation. He knew my going to that class would be more harmful for me than I understood at the time. Right? And he was willing to let me hate him so that I didn't hurt myself in that way. This is like in that moment, I realized, I don't think I'd ever, and maybe I probably have, but not realized it before, had somebody who cared more about me than they did about being liked or about their own agenda. Do you know what I mean? And that's what teachers do. So the person who you counted on to help you the most, right, betrays you. That's being a real teacher. Being a real teacher. You don't know why. You can't read their minds. You don't know why they did it. Right? Like, I could say, Lama Marut did that just because he's selfish and he's possessive of his students and he didn't want to share me with Geshe Michael, Lama Christie. Right? Or I could say he did it because he could see I had the wrong motivation and I was harming myself. I can't prove either. Even if I ask him, and he says, well, the reason I did it, Shadi, is because I thought you had the wrong motivation. I was trying to protect you. Right? Still, there's no way to verify it. So what's the most useful way to look at it? What's the most useful construct, framing that I can put on that moment? Love. It's the most useful construct. And I got to tell you, that was 4 years ago. A, I'm still telling the story. Right? And B, that occurrence with him has taught me and taught me and taught me and taught me. Like this, it's had so many layers that for 4 years I keep going back to that situation and it teaches me something else. Every time I think about what happened, I learn something else from it. Right? Incredible. And one of the hardest moments I've ever had with Lama Marut, who's my Lama. Right? One of the hardest moments I've ever had with him. And it has taught me and taught me and taught me for 4 years. Right? So, let go of the idea that your teachers are people who are going to stroke you. Right? They're people who are going to push you, and that's their job. They're going to stroke you too because they're kind. Right? Lama Marut definitely pats me on the little head and says, good little Shadi. Right? Motivates me, inspires me. Right? But he also really pushes my buttons. Right? And that's what great teachers do. So, in a sense, you're looking at this person in your life. You may not have designated them your teacher. You may not have said, oh, please teach me. But that's what they're doing. They're acting as your teacher. You could see them as you could almost see them as an emanation of your teacher in that moment. This person who's being mean to me, who's betraying me, I can see that as, in the moment, Lama Marut's coming through on them, coming through for me through that person in this moment. Right? In another part of my life, if I have somebody who betrays me, right? I could see in that moment, oh, here's Lama Marut channeling through this person. Right? Another way to construct it. So, yeah. Bar is getting higher. Verse number 7. In brief, may I give all help and joy to my mothers directly or some other way, May I take all the hurt and pain of my mothers in secret upon myself. So there's a lot of mothers going on here, right? And it's an exercise I'd like to suggest. There's 2 exercises in this that are possible for you to pick from. Of course, you can still pick one of the verses to work with this week. But here's a thought. Like I said earlier, when the Tibetans arrived in the West and they started teaching and use your mother and see all beings as your mother, and they were shocked to find like people were in the like, oh, my mother didn't treat me very nicely, so that meditation doesn't work for me. Or I think my mother is a selfish person, and so that meditation doesn't. My mother was. Westerners had all these things about their mothers. The Tibetans just sort of sat there with their jaws dropped down to the floor because it's just not the Eastern way in terms of framing your parents, right? So a really great meditation that Geshe-la gave us, and this is from the advanced teachings, was to actually meditate on your mother and all the things she's done for you. So whatever your thoughts are about how advanced or unadvanced or enlightened or unenlightened your mother may be, the fact of the matter is she carried you in her body for 9 months. Everything she ate, how she slept, everything that she did was for your survival. She gave birth to you. She gave you life. She gave you life. She gave you this opportunity to be sitting in this room. She cared for you. You were completely helpless, right? If not for your parents, right, particularly your mother, you would not be alive. You know, I was in Honduras, the islands off the coast of Honduras, when I was living on a sailboat, and one day we're taking our little dinghy up to the dock, and we ran into this young Spanish girl. This girl was traveling from Spain, and she was attacked by a bulldog, and the dog kind of chewed off half her foot. So we took her to a hospital, and when we got to the hospital, we found there was this little baby. The baby couldn't have been any more than 3 months old, and somebody had left it on a beach. Just left the baby on the beach, and they had estimated the baby had been on the beach for about 18 hours. Right? Somebody had left their baby on a beach overnight and then all day long. It looked like a victim of Auschwitz. Right? It doesn't take very long. Like 18 hours they were estimating that this baby had been left on a beach. And it probably would have died if somebody hadn't come across it within a few hours. Completely, utterly helpless. That's what we are as babies. If somebody isn't caring for us, we don't live. And so somebody had brought this baby to the hospital, and they were helping the baby, and you know, it looked like it was going to be survive. Pretty damaged, I'm guessing. I don't know. I saw it a week later. It was still looking a bit like an Auschwitz victim. But we're completely helpless. And if somebody doesn't help us survive, we don't. So however your mother treated you later in life, she did that. She kept you alive. She fed you. She was your first teacher. She taught you how to tie your shoes, how to go to the bathroom, how to share, right? Taught you how to eat. You know, mothers even have to teach babies how to suckle from a nipple. And I don't know if people here know, like newborn babies, you actually have to teach them how to suck. Like, they don't even know how to do that. Things that we think of as natural, a lot of, maybe your kids didn't, but I know a lot of people who had to teach their kids how to like take the food, right? It's everything for your survival your mother did for you. So you just kind of do that as a meditation. And then you just go through the years of your life. She taught you how to, your whole basis of ethics comes from your mother. She taught you good from bad, right? She taught you how to interact with other people. She taught you everything. So it's a good meditation to just spend some time and then be grateful. Whatever your opinion of your mother is now, however well or not well you think of her, just be grateful for what she did for you. I was talking to I have a couple of students in Europe, and I was talking to them, and I had assigned this meditation to her. You know, she's a vegetarian, and she's, does all these good things in her life, and she's a good person. You know, this student of mine, she's a really good person. And she doesn't think that well of her mom. She doesn't feel, that her mom is living the kind of life she'd like to see her mother living. She has such high hopes for her mother, right? and she doesn't see her mother living that life. And so this meditation was hard for her. And yeah, I had the same thing. I went through exactly the same thing. And where I had to go with it was, never mind how I think of this being, be grateful for what she did. Be grateful for what she did. I always, in the past, think of my mother as being quite narcissistic. Oh, she's so narcissistic. Right? And all psychology terms for her behavior. But whatever I think, she was my first teacher, and she did so much for me. So much for me. So that's the way they want you to think about all beings. Why? Because if reincarnation is true, and if we've lived infinite lives, then every single being you have ever met has been your mother at one lifetime or another. Every single being. This lifetime, I'm sitting here, you're sitting there. Next lifetime, it's switched. One lifetime, we're friends. Another lifetime, we're enemies. One lifetime, you're the mother. Next time, I'm the child. Every being in your world has been every kind of relationship to you. The fact of the relationship that you're in with them now is just one of the ongoing dance that we do with each other. Right? So every single person that you run into, every being, every cockroach has been your mother. Right? And that's what they mean when in these meditations where they say think of every being as your mother. Right? Is to realize that if reincarnation is true and we've lived since beginningless time, that's a long time, then at some point or another they've been your mother. So then there's the whole been your mother, are your mother. So if a child is separated from her mother at birth, and is raised by somebody else, is the person who gave birth to her still her mother, even if she doesn't know it? Yes, right? Answer is yes. That being is still her mother. The birth mother is still her mother. Well, just like you can't remember, I can't remember when Alvaro was my mother, doesn't change the fact that he was my mother. Right? So we're to think of it in that way. And the fact that it isn't in this lifetime is like the lifetimes are an arbitrary line. And so all beings are my mother. Because if you've been my mother at some point, then you still are. Right? It's a really interesting logic through all of that, right? You need to kind of think about it. But I urge you as a possible assignment for this week for yourself is to spend time just thinking about all the things your mother has done for you and being grateful for them. Being grateful for them. Also in this verse, there's a couple of other interesting tidbits. In brief, may I give all help and joy. And then later on it says, may I take all the hurt and pain of my mothers in secret upon myself. So here they're talking about the Tonglen practice. Tonglen is the secret way, without going and saying, hey, I'm really helping you out right now. I'm taking all your pain and giving you all the goodness. You just do it on the inhale and the exhale. With every inhale, you take away anybody you see their pain, and with every exhale, you send them whatever it is they need. Right? Anytime you see anybody you think is suffering in any way, you just inhale and take away their pain, and you exhale and you send them what they need. So Tonglen, there's a whole elaborate meditation, but this is a quick way of doing it all day long. And you have to ask yourself, so does it change them? When I do this, when I'm stopped at the stoplight and I see a person with a little sign out saying, please give me money, and I inhale all their pain and I send them a bag full of money and anything else that they need, is it changing that person? Does it change them? What's your answer?
Yes.
Yeah, how?
It's like a prayer.
It's like a prayer. So all of a sudden that person is going to be fine. They're not going to need to be on that. So if I go back to that corner next week and they're still there.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Why?
Because it changes you and your projection.
Right.
That person makes this new nonsense.
Right.
Raises yours and their vibration.
It raises your vibration for sure. They're your creation. You created every person that's suffering in the world. You created them. You created them with your own selfishness, with your own self-cherishing. Right? So when you do Tonglen, when you take away the pen and you send them everything they need, you're changing you. You're changing your mind into a mind of a being that isn't focused on themselves all the time. Right? There isn't focused on themselves all the time. And by changing your mind that way, changing yourself that way, you change the world. You change the world. Right? Because they're your creation. And you can think of it that way, that they're your responsibility. Right? And so what else are you going to do other than help them? Since you created them as a suffering being, right? You're going to help them. So this is a very important thing to get. Otherwise, you can give up on Buddhism. Right? You can say, well, I've been practicing and the world's still crap. Right? Oh, I've been trying and I still get angry. Right? But you're changing yourself, and the seeds that are those seeds will ripen. You have to trust that. Those seeds of doing the Tonglen, the seeds of trying to help other people will ripen. So you can do Lama Christi things. You can give, right? You can just give. Verse 8. May none of this ever be made impure by the 8 ideas of things. May I see all things are illusion and free myself from the chains of attachment. So, in order to do Lojong well, as we said earlier, you have to understand emptiness. Because it's hard to do without understanding emptiness. Otherwise, it just seems like some bizarre, self-effacing behavior. Unless you understand where, from one point, where the beings in your world are coming from, where the people who've hurt you, where the people who betrayed you. Unless you understand that, and then then B, understand what it is you're creating. Right? So your understanding of emptiness and karma is pivotal to being able to do this. Otherwise, it just seems like a bizarre, kind of like the lady was saying, you're just nuts. That's just a crazy thing to do, right? Your actions create your world. Somebody who betrayed you does not exist as a betrayer self-existently. What does that mean? Right? In the verse, it says, "May I see all things are illusion." Does that mean it's not real? Does that mean this table is not real? That the people around you aren't really there?
It's like perception of it.
Perception, yes. Yes, that's one way of putting it. To put it in like sort of the yield Buddhist terms is that they do exist, but they don't exist independent of you, of your past actions and speech and thoughts. They exist as a projection forced on you by your past actions, right? They do exist, right? But they exist as a projection. Why is it an illusion? Because they appear to exist. The illusion is that they appear to exist separate from me. I don't know, she's over there, she's over there, I'm over here, what's it got to do with me? Right? So that's the illusion, that appearance of separation. That appearance, like what she does, how she acts, has got nothing to do with me. Right? That's the illusion. Right? The truth is, she's a projection of me. The truth is, we are connected. The truth is, it's coming from me, right? Not at me. I'm not like out and bumping into the world, right? There's me and I'm just, independently bumping into various aspects, experiences, people. No, it's actually ripening as I move. We're in a movie that we are creating. We are immersed inside of it. We're not sitting back and watching it as though it's coming from somewhere else. It's coming from us. And we are in it at the same time. Right? So that's what they mean here with "May I see all things are illusion. Free myself from the chains of attachment," right? Which is like free myself from the idea of that I can push away or I can hold on to things as though they have some sort of fixed essence, right? And often they'll ask in a class, they'll say, well, what's the proof that the irritating person isn't irritating from their own side? Everybody says, because other people don't find them irritating. And my mind says that's because other people are wrong. They are irritating, and it's from their own side. Right? I don't know about your minds. Your minds might be more pure than mine, but I just go, well, it's because everybody else is wrong. They knew that person like I know that person. They'd see that person as really irritating. Right? So here's a proof that I like to think of, and that is if the person is essentially irritating, in other words, they have the essence, the nature of being irritating, then that irritatingness would be there all the time. Every time I looked at that person, I would feel irritation. Right? And it would be the same irritation, flatline, every time, if they were that way in essence, because it would be their nature to be irritating. Right? But even the most irritating people sometimes they're more irritating than other times. And sometimes they're not very irritating. Hey, he's nice today. Well, he can't be nice today because his essence is irritating. Right? Do you see what I'm saying? So in this way, this is another way to prove that their irritatingness isn't coming from them, it's coming from us. Because some days I see them as really, really irritating, and some days I see them as mildly irritating. Is it them that's changed, or is my point of view that's changed? Right? So that's another proof, and it gets around the Shadi as everybody is wrong. That's why they don't see that they're irritating. And then it says in that same verse, it says, may none of this ever be made impure by the 8 ideas of things. So the 8 ideas of things. Do you guys mind? We need like another 5 minutes. Is that all right with everybody? Yeah? Okay. So the 8 ideas of things are the 8 worldly thoughts. So those are basically, they're like in pairs. So it's being really happy when you get things and being really unhappy when you don't get things. So that's pair number 1 and 2. Right? Being really happy, these are the 8 worldly thoughts. Being really happy when you get something and being really unhappy when you don't get what you want. Right? And then the next pair is feeling really happy when you feel good and feeling really unhappy when you don't feel good. This is mostly like physically, like really happy when you feel well and really unhappy when you feel unwell. So that's pair 3 and 4, right? The next 5 and 6 are being happy when you are well known and being really unhappy when you're not known, when you're unknown. And the last pair, 7 and 8, are being happy when you are praised and being really unhappy if you're criticized or not praised. Right? So it's saying don't do number 1 through 7. Don't do all those Lojong actions that we've been talking about. Taking the loss, being compassionate. Don't do all of those things for these reasons, right? So some of them are like, you're like, well, what do you mean by that? That doesn't quite make sense to me. So it's sort of like, I think of the first pair as ignorant liking, some ignorant liking and ignorant disliking. So there's no problem with liking things, like when good things happen to you, there's nothing wrong with that. Like it. But understand where it comes from. Understand where it comes from. It doesn't come from, I got this a really great new dress because I had a job interview and I needed it. It's a good excuse to get a new dress. And so was it that I happened to have the cash because I just got paid, and that's how, and then I went to the store and the nice lady helped me find a dress, and now I have this new great day. Is that where the dress came from? Did it come from the cash or from the store? No. It came from me helping other people have nice things they liked, right? So it's understanding that. So when I like something, I can like it, but understand where it comes from, right? And when I don't like something, right? When the person yells at me, understand where that comes from too, right? Understand where and don't let that kind of ignorance of where things coming from taint your behavior in the other areas. And then when you feel good and when you don't feel good, often our practice gets thrown off by how we feel physically. If I feel sick, I'm not meditating. I'm not doing my yoga, And I think this is, in terms of like the Lojong, is don't stay the course. Stay the course on compassion. Stay the course on wisdom until, regardless of how you feel physically, whether you're up for it or you're not. You know, if I did everything based on how I feel, frankly, I wouldn't do a lot. You know, because often I feel lazy. Actually, I feel like I don't feel like it. You know, I don't know about you guys, but that thought runs through my mind. I don't feel like it. I'm tired.
A really good tool I use for that exact thing is, I really find, like we were talking about, putting the vibrations on other people, or putting that, as soon as you send out that emotion, that you're attaching it to them. When people, you know, just, hey, how are you? Or how are you doing? I always answer with amazing, wonderful, you know, awesome, beautiful, everything, because those are the things that I am. They're not the things I'm experiencing. So as soon as you say, like, oh, I'm sick, or I'm, you know, pissed off, someone hit my bumper, or someone cut me off, then you give that negative attachment to it. So that's a big tool I use to detach myself from the immediate kind of world that's affecting you, because I am amazing, I am happy, I am wonderful, I am perfect, all of these things. So as soon as I give myself that, it takes the rest of that pain away. Maybe I just stubbed my toe, maybe I just, you know, tripped or fell or lost my bag, but those aren't the things that I am.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting approach. You can see how that might help somebody. Yeah, for sure. I think in here what they're trying to say is that when you do feel that way, that to have the kind of spiritual endurance that despite that, without trying to, without suppressing it, without pretending you feel another way, without trying to frame yourself as anything different than what you're actually is occurring for you, I do feel crappy. I'm still going to do my practice. You know, because it's not that emotion that I'm feeling at the time shouldn't be the deciding factor. I should do things because they're the right thing to do, because it's the wisest course for me, despite how I'm feeling in the moment, despite whether I feel up for it or I don't. Right? So I think it's a little bit more in that direction. And I think, you know, the teachings, the karma yoga teachings are really good here too, and that's to let go of the fruits, right? Particularly when we're talking about doing things to be praised or not to be, or being not praised, right? If you're doing the Lojong practice, so everybody can say, good little Buddhist, right? Little pat on the head. You know, Lumber's going to give me a little pat on the head if I act like a good little Buddhist, right? It's the same thing as doing it to get praised. Whereas I should just do it because it's the right thing to do, as opposed to what results. And you can even take that as far as, I know that a lot of our teachings, you know, especially when I guess your Michael comes into town, he says, oh, plant the right seeds so that you can have the life that you want, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not trying to take away from that, but that is a kind of an attachment. It's a kind of an attachment to a particular, I'm going to do this action so I can have this life. Well, you know, Buddhism, that's not the goal. The goal of Buddhism isn't to have a great samsaric life. The goal of Buddhism is to get enlightened. That's the goal. So don't taint your actions with your worldly ideas of the nice things you'd like to have in this life. Go for the real goal, which is ultimate happiness, and everything that you need will come to you. Don't worry about it. Right? Don't worry about it. You don't need to micromanage your life. Oh, I'm going to plant this seed so I can get this, so I can get a new car, so I can get a job, so I can get a nice boyfriend. You don't need to micromanage your life like that. Go for the real gold, right? Get enlightened so that you can help other beings. And everything that you need to do that will come to you. And that might include a nice new car, and it might not. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, right? You're just tainting your practice. You know, I think it's a great entry level. I think it's, you know, they call Geshe Michael the heart-stealing angel. He's very seductive, right? So he appeals to what we want. Oh, I become a Buddhist and get all the stuff I want. Oh, cool, right? That's great entry-level Buddhism. But it's time to get a little bit more sophisticated here. Okay? It's trying to upgrade your path. Upgrade it to the real goals. Right? Because you know, you get the new car, you get the new boyfriend, new girlfriend, whatever. And it's very temporary happiness. Go for the real happiness. And in dedicating everything positive to that, everything else you need will come. Honestly. And sometimes that might look like you're not getting something that you like. All the lessons you need will also come. Right? So I just urge you to upgrade your motivation here. And I think that's what he's talking about here, Mr. Diamond Lion. Right? Don't taint your practice with your manipulations, your roboclausing of your life to make yourself have a nice samsaric experience. You know, a teacher of mine in the past used to call it ice cream on poop. Right? A couple of scoops in and you're back to you know what. So, just stop worrying about your little samsaric experience and focus on the real goal. And in focusing on that, you make every single thing that you do more powerful. Right? Make every single thing that you do much more powerful. And then the last aspect of the 8 worldly thoughts. Lost it. The last one is being happy when you are, we did that. Being happy when you're praised and being unhappy when you're not praised. So I was going to say the other aspect of that is people liking you. I find for a lot of people, myself included, that this is a great this is one of the most samsaric motivations. Doing things to be liked. Being happy when you're liked and being unhappy when you're not liked. Right? I find this to be the toughest place, and I find it particularly in spiritual people. I mean, part of the reason why they're here is because they want to be good people, and part of the reason they want to be good people is because they want love. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wanting love and to have the experience of love and to share love with other people. There's nothing wrong with it. I think that's a good thing. But it can twist us. It can twist us. And the cause of experiencing love is not trying to manipulate the situation, manipulate others, or even manipulate your karma in order to get love. The way to get love is to give love. That's the cause of it, right? And the ultimate love is to reach for enlightenment so that you can help other people. So, again, and the fact of the matter is, until you love everybody, there are always going to be people who dislike you. Right? I mean, they say anytime you're in any room, that a third of the people you like, a third of the people you feel neutral towards, and a third of the people you dislike. And that if you took the first third, the people you like, and you got rid of the other 2 groups, you'd then take that group and pick a third of them that you really, really like, a third of them that you kind of like, and a third of them actually, I don't like that person. This is how it goes, right? And until we change that, right, then there will always be people who don't like us. So, there's no point in working for people to like you. There's no point in it. You're not going to make progress making your actions in life to other people to like you. The way you're going to create everybody liking you, is for you to like everybody. So work on your compassion. Work on your wisdom. Work on your ability to love. And stop twisting yourself and manipulating others, trying to get love from them. At least 2/3 of them will either be indifferent or not like you until you like everybody, right? So, just coming and making efforts here to try and grow the compassion, the love in your own heart is an incredibly good thing to have done. So let's practice what we've been talking about and see that positive karma that we've created today together and individually. All your efforts to get here, being here, sitting through class, staying late. Think of somebody you know who's suffering, and imagine that you transfer that good karma to them. That you actually give them your good karma. And you could see it as a light going from your heart to their heart, actually giving it to them. And somehow they feel better, they feel happier, and they don't know why. Maybe they have the thought that a guardian angel is looking after them, and that's you. You're their guardian angel. So feel really, really happy to have done that for them, and feel grateful for them for giving you an opportunity to open your heart. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nishi?
Sashi.
Kuki Jushin Meito Ramri Rabling Shi Nyende Gempadi Sange Shindu Mite Ular Hidrokunanda Shingla Druparsho Yambu Radha Mandala Kamniratayami Dini Geokum Sunam Yeshe Sok Sok Shin Sunam Yeshe Lejong Wei Dhamma Kuni Toparsho. Thank you, everybody. So this week, try working with one of the verses from the 8 verses, or do the Tonglen all day, taking their breathing and taking away, sending out, or try doing the mother meditation. So pick whichever one calls to you. In the homeworks, if you're keeping up your homeworks with the classes, you won't be able to answer the second half of the 8 worldly ways of looking at the world, 8 worldly thoughts, because there's one way of doing it the way we did it, and then there's another way of looking at it, which is an emptiness study, and we'll do that at the beginning of next class.